Over the past few weeks, we've had a lot of rain in Oklahoma. And Brian, how has the rain impacted the soil fertility across the state?
So with a lot of the corn and sorghum that goes in, traditional nitrogen management is pre-plant nitrogen and then you plant the crop. As I traveled across the state the last couple of months, you see a lot of people putting out anhydrous or liquid nitrogen ahead of planting. And then we get all this rain. So the question is, what happened? The likelihood is we have lost some nitrogen. Whether it's through leaching in any deep soils where that nitrogen is sitting there and the water percolated through, we've had nitrogen go down to depth. We've also had any areas that had standing water for more than a couple days likely had denitrification. That's actually when the nitrogen turns into a gaseous form and goes up into the atmosphere. So as we look at the standing crop with the corn and sorghum or anything that's going to be planted in the near future, all likelihood is the nitrogen that was applied prior to the rains has at least partially been lost. So we have to start accounting for that or considering how to account for it. One of the options would be to go ahead and put out an enriched strip in those fields, get some nitrogen down in strips just to see if there's a difference out there. The other, of course, is keeping a good eye on the crop. After it gets growing, keep an eye on those lower leaves, looking for yellowing of those older lower leaves to see if there's any nitrogen deficiencies. Or if you just want to bank ahead, think about what you think could have been lost. There's likelihood of 20 to 40% loss, and make a plan for an additional side dress nitrogen application to compensate for what was lost.
So within all of that, is it really worth doing a soil sample and sending it off?
A soil sampling is a great idea, and there would be a lot of people asking you to think about that. The challenge is if the nitrogen was applied as anhydrous or urea or even UAN, it may not all be in the nitrate form. So a soil test typically tests for nitrate nitrogen and does not look for ammonium form of nitrogen. So just because the nitrate levels are low may not mean you have lost a lot of nitrogen, because it could still be in the ammonium form. So if you were to do a sample to see what is left over, you would need to make sure that you analyze for both ammonium and nitrate. Otherwise, it could be a false negative on how much nitrogen is left over from the season.
What about following a wheat crop? Say a situation where they go through and they hay the wheat. Yeah. Is there soil issues there?
Yeah. So one thing we have to keep in mind for all the acres out there that have been swathed and baled, where there was wheat and now going into cotton, sorghum, corn, or something else, is that wheat hay takes up a significant amount of nutrients. For every ton, you're probably removing about 60 pounds of nitrogen, 60 pounds of potassium, and quite a bit of phosphorus. So keep that in mind and have it in mind when you're going into your nitrogen recommendation for your falling crop, knowing that wheat has removed a significant amount of nitrogen. Now, if you just burn down, whether this is a cereal cover crop or a wheat where you terminated it and planted into that residue, you still have the nitrogen that has been taken up into that plant, and you do not know when that's going to come available. So if you've terminated wheat or a cereal cover crop, know that there's nitrogen tied up in that residue that may or may not come available in that summer crop season.
And speaking of all this soil nutrition, we're right here next to the Magruder plots, and there's a big event coming up this Friday.
Big event. We have to have a reminder. For May 19th, we're going to have a field day. It's going to be centered around the celebration of the 125th harvest of the Magruder plots. We're going to have a lot of things going on, though. We're going to start with coffee, donuts, and registration on the Stillwater Agronomy Farm around 8 o'clock. Around 9 o'clock, we're going to kick it off with some speakers, some guest speakers. President Hargis will be on site, and Dean Kuhn will be, and they're going to be discussing what's going on. Then we'll move into the field day activities, where we'll have Dr. Manicherry, Dr. Lofton, and Dr. Long talking about spray drift control, and so they have a lot of demos on that. Then we'll move to Dr. Warren, Dr. Roccatelli, and Dr. Taylor talking about soil conservation, forage systems, and biosystem engineering. We'll finish up with the Magruder plots, and we'll talk about the history of Magruder with Dr. Bowman. We'll talk about the data that's been collected in the future of soil fertility based upon Magruder plots. Then we'll end up with a lunch.
Well, and that's pretty remarkable, because 125 years of soil fertility just right over here behind us, and it's open to the public.
Open to the public. Come out and see. The plots are in great shape. You'll really be able to see the difference when it comes to the field day.
Okay, thank you much, Brian. And we'll put a link to more information on that on our website, sunup.okstate.edu.